G'day and welcome to the latest episode of Vantage Point. Now, if you reckon AI right now is mostly noise, then today's guest I think will probably make you reconsider. Nick Lissette is the founder and CEO of Blackpearl Group and is doing what most AI businesses only talk about, generating real revenue for real clients. They listed on the ASX some 5 months ago and operationally they've performed extremely well. Their annualised recurring revenue or ARR is up to $27 million and has doubled organically year on year, with the Pearl engine now processing 31 billion data signals. In this episode, the data value equation, the Taylor Swift moment that rewrote a marketing playbook, and why Nick reckons 99% of agentic AI projects fail or are going to fail. Let's get into it.
Nick, fresh off the boat, probably not the right thing to say, but fresh off the plane from Wellington where the weather was a bit wild yesterday in the webinar.
Man, we got out just.
Well done for making the trip. Q4 update out yesterday. What's the date? 22nd of April. We're recording this, just under 27 million ARR. Business is growing. We're not going to swear on this one. Business is growing extremely fast. No swearing. We're going to go professional.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're stepping it up a notch.
Wow.
What's the one number from the quarterly that you put on a billboard?
Yeah, it'd be the year-on-year growth rate.
Yep.
That's the thing that I'm proudest about because we're consistent with that growth. I mean, even if you go back pre-ASX listing, NZX listing, if you look, we have grown quarter on quarter on quarter on quarter on quarter religiously.
And I think one of the other important points that one of the analysts picked up yesterday was, you strip out B2B Rocket. I think he did 3.5 in the first half. 7 in the second half. So he's still doubling year on year in terms of organically as well, which is important.
Yeah, I mean, we don't buy companies for the revenue that they had. We buy them for the revenue they're going to make us.
Yep.
And that's obviously one of the ventures that has been super dynamic with its growth.
And 12 months ago, so you've been listed on the ASX for 5 months. 12 months ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I know there's some smaller products in the portfolio, but you're basically a single product portfolio company. Just talk us through, what sort of changed since then and where Blackpearl sits today.
Yeah, so stepping stones to get to where you are. Every kind of product we've had in the past has been really important at that moment in time. For the first email products what they had, that's how we started building our data. This golden email, daily email, data gold anyway. A year ago, we had really one high growth product, which was Pearl Diver. And what that does is it takes the outcomes from the data we're discovering and processing and serves it up in a way that marketeers can use that to create unique audiences that they can use in all platforms to give them a competitive advantage. Where we sit today is we've got 3 products and they all 3 high growth products all serve slightly different purposes in the revenue generating business. So for marketeers, the way the outcomes from our data are best served are via Pearl Diver. For businesses that don't really have enough marketing spend and are still trying to get booked demos and get themselves some at-bats, so they say in America, at-bats for revenue conversations, that's where B2B Rocket fit in, and that's where that data is manifested differently, right? And then the last one is Bebop, which is you actually have a sales team, but they don't have enough to do outreach to, or once they've got a meeting, how do they best close that down? And that's Bebop. So these are all pulling from the same central source of data, the Pearl engine, and the same processing logic of that data, but serving it up in a very clear and easy and digestible way, rather than a big complicated platform. No, we've gone down
Products.
very specific products.
And in terms of the Pearl engine, I think this time last year you talked about 21 billion data inputs. Today it sort of sits over 31 billion. In terms of adding 10 billion, etc. Does it get to the stage where it doesn't really matter about whether it's 31 or 35 billion?
The answer is yes and no. Volume of data is important, and quality of data is important. But sooner or later, there is only so many permutations of those 31 billion signals that you can analyze practically to get good outcomes. So you get, you'll get more. More can be good. but it's really the quality at that point, and you're talking about marginal improvements rather than step change improvements.
So in terms of 21 to 31, I'm assuming that's it's obviously a positive in terms of the platform and the data is getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
But how do you actually get those signals? Where is that coming from? Is it just out of thin air, or is it emails, or?
Oh no, I mean massive amounts. So three key areas where our data comes from. The first is what we're going out and learning ourselves using our augmented large language model. Now, that's not an uncommon thing. You can see Claude or OpenAI, all those are going out and reading as much as they can about the world and bringing that back in. So the harvesting public knowledge. Our models are trained very specifically on generating revenue, generating outcomes for clients. So we're very targeted at what we're looking at. The next thing down from that is we've got 330 private data providers that give us access to data that is not publicly available. This is the part that's really about enrichment and finding buying signals, hash, email addresses. There's the stacks. We have to then, in real time build profiles based off those two.
That's interesting.
And that's about breadth and depth.
Yep.
And so you think like this thing's called identity resolution networks, which is part of the Pearl engine, like trying to use logic to figure out as much about an individual or his business as it can so that you can, correctly identify if they're going to be a good buyer for you. The last data set comes back from our clients, and because we have trained our model specifically on generating revenue outcomes for clients, you need that feedback to know whether it's working or whether it's not. For me, that's probably the most important data set out of the lot now. Moving forward.
In terms of, you talk about the 330 data input providers, et cetera, and the private data, how hard is it to sync them up or get the relationships with them, and how long has that taken?
It's taken years for us. I mean, it's taken years and years and years. Firstly, you have to have something, some of them work like a cooperative, so you actually have to have some novel data. This is what we're trying to create with email. What we're getting out of email, which is the metadata behind the actual content of an email, not the content. So you have to have something of value, and then all you've got once you've got that data is crude oil. Like I just think of it as crude oil. If you try and put that into your car engine, it blows it up. If you try and put that into a marketing engine, right, sometimes the results are okay. Sometimes you blow huge amounts of money, so it's an important part. It is a moat. It's not a moat that's uncrossable by anyone else. It's that next part on from there than what the Pearl engine does with that data that I think is our biggest differentiator.
It's probably a good segue in terms of the data value equation that came out in the deck yesterday. Looks awfully complicated. I know that's not as complicated as the actual model behind Blackpearl and the Pearl engine. But just talk us through practically what that means. And I think one of the things that's standing out to me, particularly during this conversation, the most recent webinar held yesterday, is it's all about revenue generation, which I would imagine makes it a bit of an easier product or sticky product in terms of if you're generating sales and revenue for a company that you're selling to, they're probably going to hang around.
100% correct. I mean, to answer that kind of, or address that comment first, I find it fascinating with the noise, all the noise around AI and technology at the moment. I say the signal to noise ratio has never been more distorted. Even some people I know that I just think are so bright, are so fascinated about what AI can do technically or may do technically or what may happen in the future. They've lost sight of why? What is the reason for you using AI? It's typically to make money or save money. So therefore, how are you using this technology to make money or save money? I think people have got the cart before the horse. They're so enamored with the technology, they haven't actually figured out what you're trying to do with it, and they figure it's going to try and find a home. This is where I think you'll see the big differentiation between the winners and the losers. Is there's some really sexy technology that has really no practical application at this moment in time. So coming back to us on that formula, funny thing is I have Max with me, full name Maximilius, so you know that he knows about AI. It's potent. He looks down his nose in disdain at the simplicity of that formula, because it is incredibly simplistic to the way that the team thinks about it, but it's still a lot more complicated than anyone else thinks about it. So the thing is, for people that hadn't seen the formula, it's basically R equals function, and then you got the brackets of, so let me start with R's, generating revenue. So we actually start with the outcome we're looking to achieve, which is, again, makes complete sense to me. Apparently no one else, so fine, So you start with revenue generating. So then the function, what we're trying to do is find equilibrium between buyers and sellers at that moment in time. So call it coherence, think of whatever word. You're just basically trying to match actually the buyer and seller.
Intent, yeah.
So then you've got the part that everyone else focuses on, which is the volume of data. We can call that V, the quality of data, Q, right? And then the supply side targeting of that. And then the last factor, which infinitely complicates that whole formula, is time. And the part that everyone stuffs up, whether that, and they do this because they're still operating and thinking about old world tool sets or old world ways of doing things. This is why AI changes everything for everyone, because you can attack things from a scale and perspectives which are impossible for humans to really do without that, and in many ways actually fathom the power of. So people always think about, okay, I want to sell something, so I need enough quality data to then do outreach or run ad campaigns for who I think my customer is. Very traditional way, right? You use your gut feel, recency bias or confirmation bias, so the last sales you made or who you think the sale should, your customer should be, and you refine that data down according to your view of the world. Well, right there and then, you've already made a massive mistake. You're closing off looking at opportunities for where your actual buyers could be, because you've refined that data down to discount them out of the gate. And then the part which is, just jumps out at me is that most businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, have really no idea who their actual genuine buyers are at any moment in time. They have their concept of an ICP, but it's done on gut feel. Man, I was guilty of that with our first product, Blackpearl Mail. It was standardized email signatures that put a digital billboard underneath your email signature for cross-selling and upselling. And I thought, oh my God, marketing agencies are going to love this. Marketeers first 3 years, smashed my head against a brick wall trying to sell it to them. Do you know who the buyers were? Accountants. What? Accountants, just the complete other end of the kind of creative spectrum, so to speak. But, the empirical evidence showed they were the buyers. So people start with the wrong thing. They focus on the quality, quantity, and their version of a supplier. Everyone looks at only half the coin when they're looking at who they want to, what the actual buyer could be. What's in it for them? I want to sell my product. Who do I want to sell to? Not any of the buyer's side. Does that person even have demand? Are they actually able to make a purchase decision? Are you speaking to the right decision makers? Do they have the right tech stack? There's thousands, millions of different things to factor in. And probably the most important one, Simon's like, is that person actually going to get benefit from what you're selling? Both of them have to be true for there to be true coherence between, a buyer and seller. And then time is the great thing that just infinitely complicates that, because every day there's a billion little events, whether they're within the company, they've just hired someone, fired someone, they've implemented something new, they have budget, they don't have budget, the industry changes, oil prices are up and down, there's a war, unfortunately these aren't they're just constants, and that they constantly move where equilibrium between the buyer and seller is. So that's what we do better than it. That's what the Pearl engine solves. Firstly, it takes the narrowness out, so it looks at the total breadth and depth of information at your disposal, and then thinks creatively or looks at that total breadth and depth of information from different perspectives to find buyer patterns that would be invisible at face value. And that is where the gold is.
I think one of the other things that I teach my kids is any zeros in that equation is basically a donut. Right?
Yeah, multiplicative.
Yeah.
And I like, and that's the thing. There's so many examples. One I was going to give probably a bit close to home, but like it's about like if you don't have demand, if the buyer doesn't have like active demand at that point in time and their demand's latent, then it's still you get no outcome. You wasted your time. Doesn't matter how good the data is. Doesn't matter how accurately you profiled that person. Doesn't matter how many of those people you're reaching out to. If the timing's out, tough cookies, man. You're making no money.
One of the more I'm a big fan of hers, and that's not just the reason why it's my favourite case study.
All right, let's pull this interview. I'm done. Are you just saying you're a fan of?
I'm a T-Swift. T-Swift.
Oh my gosh.
I've actually never actively listened to one of her songs on Spotify, but I might if the stock goes up. But the Taylor Swift moment and the case study, let's just talk to that, because I think, again, in terms of Blackpearl, it's fascinating. There's so much behind it. Obviously we talk about 31 billion, 330, complicated equations, etc. But in terms of actual practical outcomes, that's sort of the most easy to understand.
Yeah, well, you think about it, we've got like, thousands of customers across almost every single kind of B2B industry you can think of, many of the B2C industries you can think of, running tens of thousands of campaigns. And every day we have to do a whole lot of what I'm going to talk to you about, which is analyze the performance of whether the customers are getting revenue-generating outcomes, and then make changes accordingly to get revenue-generating outcomes. So the client we're talking about sold NFL apparel, and they were using our product Pearl Diver, so they were basically wanting to do marketing with our data. And they started off actually doing a good broad job, right? They created audiences based off people showing real-time intent to buy NFL apparel. You're going to get a modest uplift comparative to, say, Meta or Google when you're doing stuff like that, but you're not going to get any moonshots, because how you're personalizing that outreach is going to be pretty generic, right? It's not really going to speak to the individual seeing that ad in a meaningful way. They got an uplift. Then the big event that happened for them is the Kansas City Chiefs dropped out of the Super Bowl. They're a hot favorite. They were in the Super Bowl the year before. They'd won it the year before that, and they just had a bad year. Just dropped out. And so obviously, having over-indexed in this stock, our clients like, we've got to get rid of this. And then they did something for all of us would be incredibly logical. They created an audience based off who they thought was going to buy it, which was males, I think between the ages of 25 and 45 in Kansas and Missouri, which is the catchment area. Of course, right? It makes sense. And they'd been buying plenty of the Chiefs gear in the past. So there was a recency bias as well. It made good gut sense. There was some evidence there to show that our buyers, they created that campaign. It's bombed. And so we get triggered.
The team was on the nose.
Yeah, well, we got a trigger alert, like this campaign's going down. Yeah. So, because that's, a high value client, they were contacted accordingly, because you obviously need to give people autonomy to run the campaigns how they want, but we're their partner in making sure they get revenue outcomes. So we're like, I think you've made a mistake. You've refined this audience down based off gut feel and not timely understanding of who your buyers are. So they had to remove those parameters out of the gate. And then the Pearl engine worked its magic from there. So you open up the breadth and depth of data. You can look at it from all sorts of perspectives that would have been completely discounted when you created those thin formulas. And the processing, the thinking that you have to go through and looking at such non-obvious threads between everything, it's 3D chess. It's looking at things from a completely different dimension that typical marketing or sales analysis will do. And we're looking for intersections between, people that want to buy that product today. And so we said to them, we came back and said, look, if you want to have very personalized ad, you need to change your parameters to females between the ages of 18 and 25, parents with 10 girls, focus in the state of California. Looked at us sideways, clearly took our advice, sales went through the roof. And hence, why? So we were like, why? Because Taylor Swift. She dates, their superstar, one of the stars of the team. She wears their gear. She's seen at the games. And so Swifties want to look like her, want to be her. I don't even know anything about, I'm sure many of them know very little about NFL and care even less about whether the team wins or lose. But at that moment in time, that cohort was still buying. The diehard Chiefs fans, they weren't dying hard. Their team had lost. The team was dead to them. No one wants the losers edition top, right? Now, that audience changes again if Taylor Swift dumps them. Make no mistake, so that's the impact of time and the challenge of getting complete, constant daily equilibrium.
We've talked about the 3 products and just jumping ship a little bit here, but in terms of B2B Rocket, bought it for roughly $4 million US and a couple $1 million of shares as well, up to $13 million US earnout. Sounds like a lot. I know that it was growing very fast at the time. I won't show my shoes because I'm barely wearing shoes. But you talked at the time 1 + 1 = 3. How's that playing out?
Yeah, it is. Exactly as predicted, which is rare. Usually so where we saw with them is that what I liked about the product, it was solving a pain point, which I could identify with, and our clients of Pearl Diver that didn't have marketing spend, so weren't probably great fit for Pearl Diver, were experiencing. How do I get inbound demos or meetings booked when I don't have a marketing budget? All right, so you don't have a marketing budget, guess what your next way is? Outbound calls. Well, that, if you've ever done that, is really, really, really unpleasant. You are full of rejection. There is a hell of a lot of discipline involved, and it's the numbers game. What do you have to make 100 calls, whatever, to get one person answering, and then one out of them will book a meeting, and then one out of every few will turn up to the meeting. I mean, it's brutal numbers. Gives me
anxiety just thinking.
Yeah, it does. It's horrible. They take that pain away, and they do that very well with something that we'd actually been looking at building for a couple of years. I mean, we understand a huge amount about email. My last 2 companies are in cloud email. We've got one of the world's leading email engineers on our team. So, of course, we could build it, but that's time and energy when we were making great strides in other areas. So we knew that you've already got momentum, you've got a very, very slick sales outfit with them. The best. The other ventures might not be happy with me saying this, but I think we know that they're the apex sales animals in the Blackpearl group. So you've got really capable, and they're young and energetic. That provides hell of a lot of momentum, and we knew that when we added our data, and that was going to provide better revenue generating outcomes, more demos, and then ultimately we can increase the average revenue that we get per customer because we're providing more value. So that's been playing out great. They move really, really fast. And you think I'm saying that, you can imagine how fast they move. So some of the discipline with them is more quality over quantity now. And that was, I think, one of the themes Karen was sort of talking through on our webinar as well, as we are growing very quickly. We are breaking our systems and processes all the time accordingly. And you've got to make sure that you're building for longevity, not for short spikes.
One acronym, DaaS, or Data as a Service, has been prominent over the last, or since basically this on the ASX. It was new then. Maybe just give us a bit of a background, what the hell is it? It's another, obviously, product that's shaved off, if that's the right way of looking at it, from Pearl Engine. But how does it differ from the others, and why is it worth more?
Yeah, so you've got the old world of recurring revenue uncontracted month-to-month paying, right? That still has value within your revenue composition, because typically if you've got a quick CAC payback period, and we have an exceptional quick CAC payback period, they provide good cash, short-term cash. The next one along the line for us is contracted integrated, what we still call it SaaS, but not as you know it, Jim. So it's typically someone, therefore, is contracted annually. They've then integrated your product into their daily operations. For us, that's marketing and sales.
Yep.
And when that just becomes part of your workflow and it's got some attribution to outcome, it becomes a lot stickier. Then DaaS is data as a service, where people are wanting our data, and more critically, the outcomes of our data at mass, so they can then create services that they can then go and sell to their clients. So it's a little bit like a reseller or a wholesale model. Could be thought of in that same thing. But again, it's not just about the data, it's about the processing of that data to calibrate that for revenue outcomes for their clients and be able to do that at mass. So that is obviously very integrated in, because it's part of how they're making money.
That's how they're going to market.
Yeah, that's actually you become their product, you know, so that becomes super sticky.
So maybe give us an example. Is that like a marketing agency or what's
marketing
who's the
agencies
customer
are the
profile?
largest cohort for sure. At the moment, I think there's 22,000 digital marketing agencies in the States, or I think that was the number I saw. We're really trying to deal with what I'd say is tier 2 and tier 3s out of that. Tier 1s are your Omnicom and Publicis groups, and they're just we have conversations with them. They're just massive,
and they just can't move probably.
It's beyond my patience level to go through those. But really interesting companies is just not a great fit for us. The tier 2s, they'll typically have, hundreds, thousands of clients. They'll already have understanding of using data and a high degree of sophistication. Tier 3's a smaller version of that. And then you've got the majority of the market, which are tier 4s, people that know that the last one at a party that died 10 years ago, and they're trying to make changes accordingly. Typically, they don't have the money or the resourcing or the experience to be able to get great benefit from us. So,
and why is it worth more? Is that because they're basically making money selling it to others, or
just contribute to the value you get? Like, I think the example of that one we used, where they're paying us $20,000 US a month. You go, oh my gosh, that's a huge amount of money. That's on their credit card. They're like, hey, I do not want to miss a payment. They're making $200,000 a month from that.
Can I ask a question? How do you know that? Like, why would they tell you that?
So I think that's one, we get a really good visibility over how many clients you've got. Yep. So then it's just really multiplying what your package is. So yes, we can do it that way. But in most instances, we take a partnership approach, right? So we say out of the gate, we're not a data supplier. If you want a data supplier, go elsewhere. What we are is a revenue generating partner. Now, that trust builds over time. Naturally, at first, they're a little concerned about sharing their customer bases and stuff like that. When they get past that hurdle, they find mass benefit where it become an extension of their team. And because, we have such phenomenal data people in our company, we're an amazing bridge from our technology, as intuitive it is, to actually getting revenue generating outcomes. There still needs to be, in many instances, a very capable human bridge. I think that will be the case for many years to come as well.
And if we look at the moat, one of the questions I wanted to ask you in terms of putting you against your competitors in a boardroom, trying to pitch to SMBs and whatnot. What sort of differentiates you, or if you're fighting tooth and nail against them, why would you?
I'd let them all blow their voice out first and tell them
let's hear it from you in terms of 60 seconds. Why are you different to them?
We start with the outcome you're after, which is generating revenue, and then back our technology into that. what we have, which is very unique, is because we started thinking that way. We have a virtuous cycle of data inputs, data processing, and the outputs which go into application, which occurs in every split second of every day, a flywheel effect of approving that. Because we started with the outcome you've got, we're already ahead of the game for anyone else that is still talking about the quality and quantity of the data and what clever features they came up with. Just living in the past. I'd also comment, now you fired me up and my coffee finally kicked in. I find the complete lack of measuring yourself against good customer outcomes cowardly. There, I said it. You can put it out there because it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a no swear podcast. It's tough for me. It's really hard to generate revenue outcomes for people each and every day and live and die by that. It's tough. That's why no one does it, because they don't want to put the kahunas on the line. That's a huge differentiator for us. And ultimately, we're in the revenue generating business. Yeah, we're a beating heart of AI. Revenue's evergreen, baby.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to make money.
And in terms of, we talk about agentic AI and agents and all the rest of it. How bad is it going to get for these sales guys, these guys trying to generate revenue? In terms of the noise, and
signal to noise ratio, I said before, is just insane. Interestingly, now, like fun facts for you, if AI innovation stopped cold today, cold, it never got any better, the majority of the market is going to have to take up to a decade to catch up on getting the full benefit of what's capable of today. That gap is increasing every millisecond because AI growth is massively outstripping human adoption. 99% of agentic AI projects that are kicked off inside of a company fail. So all the talk of, this could happen with Claude Co, all that, well, it could. It ain't going to happen for a long, long time for the majority of the market. When you look at the old adoption bell curve, right? The noise is that there's been unprecedented noise at the early adopter level. That is what's made this distorted so many people. But I always say, I mean, interesting, you probably kick me for saying, I had the same conversation with Tim Crown, our chairman. He's right in the thick of it, literally shoulder to shoulder with these people that we see in the news talking about this. And he was going on about this could happen, how we think about this. I'm just like, center it back to outcomes. And he was like, Ashley, you're right. That was the first time I was...
that you've ever been right.
I've ever been right around him. It was so good. It was a really great day. I'll never forget it.
In terms of, you talked about Claude. I know you're a huge Claude man in terms of, I won't get you started on that because we've only got a few minutes left. ChatGPT, Google, Grok, blah, blah, blah. Yep. They've got infinite budgets. Yeah, they've got, massive head start in terms of, their LLM and all the rest of it. Why can't they just come and crunch you?
By the time that's happening, I would imagine have been taken out, been bought out by them.
Yeah.
There is going to be so long before the mass market the humans have caught up to where their AI is at, and they're running away further and further and further. I think the one that's closest to it, which is creating tools, are Claude, but that far beyond the reach of average humans.
I'm trying there, but
and they'll get more and more intuitive every day. But you're still dealing with the mass market of small to medium sized business, man. And even if you get all through that, the inputs, the outputs are only as good as the input. Yeah. Like, how good is your prompting? How good's the data it's operating on? Like, Claude gets better and better because it actually learns from the files that you've done. That, again, that comes to the uniqueness of data. Is that data then getting refined down in a way that creates meaningful outcomes? It's just the cycle. I'm in it. It's so obvious to me that it's so far away. I find it kind of in equal parts frustrating when everyone flaps out at it, but also deeply amusing.
I think it's also exciting, right, in terms of where the future's heading.
It's so exciting, but what's the practical application out of it, right? I'm going
to start calling you Nick Outcome Lissette.
We do produce results on the regular for clients and on the scoreboard itself.
2 last questions. You listed on the ASX 5 months ago, Access Capital, I would argue to re-rate as well. Stock went down on day one. How'd you feel?
Oh, it was wild. Yeah. And how I felt about on the plane. I've got through this whole podcast and held my language together, but you ask a question like that, you get, and I said to the team at the airport, I said, we will fucking show them. We want to make it so undeniable that anyone that sold stock on that day is going to look at themselves in the mirror and fucking hate themselves. And so every time something like that happens is actually of great benefit for the people that stick with the company because, we're just going to, like, you saw the immediate reaction to that.
Strongest quarter ever.
Hit the pedal to the metal in the hardest quarter, and we backed it up this quarter just to make sure everyone knows, you're right. And that's just making sure that, and so ultimately, was it a fun day? No. Was it good for the company in the long run? Yeah.
I always get scared when you laugh like that. But last question, in terms of we look forward 3 to 5 years. You've got three sort of core products now. Are you a sort of a singular 4 or 5 product company, or are you a house of brands with a bunch of them? Or you assumed into another company?
I work back. So I think ultimately we're assumed into another company. It's been my feel on it at the moment. Yep. But again, when we create a company, one of the things that I love about Tim Crown is you create a company like you're going to be in it until the day you die. And that's always the way we're thought. So we never take shortcuts in anything. So I guess that's, if we do get bought out, someone's going to have a beautifully laid out, company, because we've never intended to run. We're here to stay and fight for as long as we need to do. I think that the house of brands thing is, if there is a screaming demand in the market for something that we identify through speaking with our clients each and every day and monitoring the data on revenue outcomes, then we'll seize that opportunity. And you've seen us do this in real time. We do not mess about. But at the moment, we have to, I think, consolidate's not quite the right word. Optimize is the word. What we have grown very, very quickly. The Pearl engine continually evolves at crazy rates every day, and we're not an overly large company, so you don't want to go so fast that you lose control. So there's a bit of discipline in there at the moment.
And we're doing roughly 27 million ARR. We stated that we're going to do 30 before calendar year end. You've talked about, which I'm going to say, that if you hit that, you probably get a little bit of one of those ones on the head. If you do 35, you get a beer, and anything above that.
I said a few beers.
Well, maybe one beer. Anything above that is a night out. You've talked about 50 million ARR in the next 3 to 5 years. That seems like a little bit of a conservative number, but I think it
was like this guy once told me. He goes, when you're on the ASX, Nick, whatever you do, under promise and over perform. And I go, well, the guy's got great dress sense, so I probably should listen to him.
I'm wearing Birkenstock clogs, so that's probably a bit of a red flag for those listening, but never lose the passion. I think that's impossible for you to do. Well done on the journey so far, and looking forward to seeing what the next 5 or 6 months brings.
Awesome, man. Thank you for having me.
Cheers.